Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and listeners at home. We are recording this wonderful Everything Electric podcast at the Everything Electric Melbourne event, and it's a lovely day, and there's lots of people here, and there's lots of cars, and there's thousands of test drives taking place as we speak. And I think all in all, for a first show in a new location, in a new city that we've never done anything in before, I'm not that depressed.
So it's come off all right, hasn't it?
It's been pretty amazing. I know, because they are the first shows, or the first show we did in Sydney. It looked okay, but it was. I know what was going on behind the scenes. There was a lot of, what is that, when the ducks do paddling or something? It was a lot of anxiety and worry, and it's really.
The term in football is squeaky bum time. It was definitely
that
major squeaky bum time the day before the first Sydney show, and then everyone came. It was fine.
Yes, it's not about the public. It's often about the motor vehicles. But we won't go into any details on that.
Indeed. It's been a really enjoyable show. We've had a lovely time. We hope that you have as well. This is going to be very informal, which will not come as a surprise to you if you know much about my and Bobby's style of presenting. But we thought we'd just have a little chat, share some thoughts about what we've observed here in Australia with regard to the EV transition, the state of affairs here. And we might do a little Q&A at the end if that's of interest. You can ask anything you like.
Yes.
But don't ask when Red Dwarf is coming back, because every time someone asks, it goes back by 1 year. So I swear to God, don't do it.
Currently, it's 2098.
Our 3 free YouTube channels on EVs and clean energy tech are funded by our fun-packed Test Drive-tastic events in the North, West and Greater London, and our events down under. Next up, Everything Electric Sydney 2026. Plus, check out everythingelectric.store for merch and much more. Back to the episode.
Roberts, what have you observed? Because the fascinating thing about getting to do these shows in different parts of the world is we get to observe how this EV transition happens in a different way in different places.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on where Australia is at? Because they started late, but they sure are making up for lost time, aren't they?
I mean, I think the big change that I've observed, say, like from 6 or 7 years ago, when there were a lot of Teslas in Australia. That was very common. There was a supercharger network that was, well established. That's grown, noticeably since I've been coming here. So I'm a regular visitor. For those of you who don't know, I'm a regular visitor to Australia because I'm married to an Australian. And that has enormous benefits and no drawbacks whatsoever. It's absolutely wonderful, and she's not here today, so
you can get away with saying that. Yeah.
But I noticed there were a few Nissan Leafs and there were Teslas, and that was very. And then obviously we couldn't come for a couple of years over the COVID and everything. And when I came back, I went, oh my goodness! I kept seeing these other cars, and I went, this is really starting to change now. It's very different, and that's what I've noticed sort of in the last couple of visits. Definitely in Sydney, in Brisbane, which is where my wife is from. Brisbane is just dripping with electric cars. I mean, there's a lot more than I would have assumed it would be Sydney and Melbourne that would be the sort of centres of it. But there's a lot in Brisbane. My sister-in-law and my niece in Brisbane both have an Atto 3 and a Dolphin. And they call them cars. I think this is really interesting. I think we're at this point now where we're starting to see the transition from these are weird new techno electric cars to these are cars, and then you can also get cars that burn petrol or diesel. I think that's so. When you see people who aren't like, for instance, Jack and I, and maybe one or two people here, who are kind of very focused on it. We're obsessed with it. We know about ranges and battery size and charging speeds and all that. My niece is an artist. She's an amazing and creative woman. She doesn't give a toss about any of that. She plugs her car in and then she drives it, and that's the end of it.
Absolutely. And I think another thing that's interesting to observe here, another part of the reason why it's happening so quickly, having started quite late, is affordability. Because you guys skipped the bit where everything was just like really expensive and a bit rubbish. So you've got really high quality EVs, super affordable. Cars are so cheap here compared to back home. It's really not fair.
We are very bitter.
But
I want you to know that.
Yeah, we're not happy about it. But in addition to them being quite affordable, they also have all the Chinese stuff.
Yeah.
All the Chinese stuff. Because you guys are basically the sort of test bed for the Chinese auto industry. And I know that most of you don't mind that at all because you benefit from it massively. China will send these new models, these new brands here, and if you guys like them, they send them everywhere else. And if you guys don't like them, then they tweak them according to your feedback and your responses. And what that means is you get the really, really, really affordable stuff first, and then you combine that with the fact that they have this thing called sun here.
I know, it's weird. There's a bit of it now. It's leaking now. It's terrible.
One of our team members got heat stroke yesterday because she forgot that if you stand outside for long enough in certain parts of the world. Anyway, when you combine the affordability of these like really, really, really high quality, often Chinese EVs, with the abundance of solar, with the fact that many of you have solar panels on your roof, you can run an EV so cheap here. And it's just such an exciting thought to have your own little generator on your roof, feeding power into your car, and then one day in the not very distant future, you'll be selling some of that power back into the grid and making a bit of pocket money from your car when you're not using it. That's going to be the reality for Australians very, very soon.
It's extraordinary. I mean, I was on a podcast on this stage yesterday about vehicle-to-grid developments in Australia, and I think you're going to be ahead of anywhere else in the world. That, you know, in a sense, there was a time when it should have been America that was doing this technology, but let's just draw a very thick, heavy velvet veil over that. That's not going to happen. But I think we are starting to see the rollout of tests of vehicle-to-grid systems in the UK, similar to yours, but I think yours are going to be earlier and they're going to be more effective because of the amount of solar you can generate. It just is unfair. So the two unfair things that I get bitter about is how much cheaper electric cars are. We just had an example. The Nissan Ariya, was it $55,000 here? In the UK, it's $70,000 we pay the equivalent of for the same car. And it's made in the UK. So we should be getting it cheaper than you. I mean, it's just the most ridiculous, weird thing.
We're not bitter about it, to confirm.
But that's the other thing is the amount of solar you get off the same number of solar panels in the UK with the same inverter. I've done a test with a mate in Sydney, and I just couldn't look at his results. It made me so sad.
But Robert has almost like a sort of sustainable Bond villain set up in the Cotswolds at his home. He has this incredible solar array. I mean, amazing setup. But there are probably people here with a sort of panel on their roof the size of one of my shoes that are harvesting more energy than you are on any given day in the Cotswolds. It's so unfair.
I actually looked yesterday. I got 2.7 kilowatt hours in the day. I mean, it is November in the UK. It is a bit dull and overcast. It's been very cloudy.
Still, isn't it?
But that's still 2.7 more than I would do. I'm the best in the summer. In the middle of the summer, I would get 64 on a good day. So that's the difference between our summer and winter. And that difference is much more muted in Australia. You know, there is more, obviously, in full summer, but it drops. But it doesn't drop. In the UK, it goes, oh, look at that, and it bang to nothing. So you have that advantage. So if you've got a roof that you can put solar panels on, and you've got a car that you can plug in at that house, and with the systems that I was hearing about from it's not that it's cheap it can be free to run, and it could almost be, you could reach a point where your electric car is free to drive and also makes you money. You know, that is weird. That I don't know how long and sustainable that would be, but the fact that it's plausible is crazy.
It's a nice idea. It's something Elon Musk has been promising for a decade, isn't it? You push a button, your car goes and operates as an autonomous Uber while you're in bed, and you wake up slightly wealthier than you were when you went to bed. It's a lovely thought.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think just briefly want to mention I have been in the full self-driving Model Y this morning for the first time I've experienced it. I've been driving Teslas for 10 years. It's so annoying. I always get annoyed when I have to agree with everyone that's done it before how amazing it is. It is amazing. I mean, it was truly impressive. I know we didn't go that far and we didn't go that fast, but we had a man pushing two bikes across a road ahead of us, and he kind of stumbled a bit, and he was nervous, and he was sort of right because there was a car coming, and it saw the bikes. You could see the bikes on the screen, and it slowed right down, and we didn't. Yeah, so it went round a roundabout. It steered round a little roundabout better than I would have done. I'd have curbed it. So it was really good.
I had my first experience of full self-driving a couple of days ago, and I would describe it as terrifyingly good.
Yeah.
It's so dialed. The guy, when he gave me the keys, he said, it's better than adaptive cruise control. It's smoother. It's more
Yeah, it's
confident.
very smooth.
It's
Yeah.
so confident. It drives like a really good driver that really knows what they're doing. It's not tentative and cautious and skittish. It's just, it is astonishing. It is absolutely astonishing. And someone was explaining to me that the level, it's like level 12 or 13 that you get here. They've got one up from that already in China and the US. So there's more to come. It's just, I'm not the biggest Tesla fan, I'll be completely honest with you. If you've watched my videos, you'll know. It's a brand that I'm very quick to take the mickey out of if there's an opportunity to do so. Just because I'm a contrarian and they were sort of everywhere initially and it annoyed me. But I have no qualms with telling you that it's the most impressed I've been with the car in a very, very long time. I was experiencing that full self-driving a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
I think we should do a bit of a Q&A, but any further thoughts before we do? Any sort of profound nuggets of wisdom? What's on your mind?
I think I have used this year slightly self-indulgently, mainly privately, to reflect on what's happened over the last 15 years. So the show turned 15 this year, and it would have been so unpredictable to imagine any of the live shows we've done. That was not even there was nothing remotely like that. In fact, I took my Nissan Leaf to a village fete in 2012 and parked it. The vicar invited me in a village near where I live, and I put it in that was the first car show I did. It was my Nissan Leaf, and people could sit in it and look at it, and some of them did. And that was next to where you throw the coconut shy and the bric-a-brac sale and the cake competition. I did have a cake in the cake competition. I got second prize. I'm not going to go on about that. There was only 2 cakes in the contest. It was a very small fete. So that's how I started out with car shows. And it's very much thanks to Dan Caesar, who's not here, who initiated the idea of doing events like this. And I said, don't be daft, no one's going to come. And I think it's fair to say I was wrong.
We remain pleasantly surprised every time that they do.
Yeah. But anyway, that's enough reflection. I don't want to go on about it too much.
Who'd like to ask us a question? Are we coming back next year? I think we're pretty much certainly coming back next year.
I think it's quite likely. We were very anxious about it before the show opened on the previous week. But I spoke to Jo, who is, none of this would be here without her incredible energy and input, and the team around her. Amazing people who've worked they do work really hard, and for months before we get here. I mean, they're organising everything before we get here. And I said to her this morning, do you think we'll do next year? And she said, I'm not going to say anything yet, but it's definitely not no. That's I mean, I think they have to go through the spreadsheet and see what happens, but
It is important to remember that people put months and months of effort into these shows, and we just swan in the day of. I said something slightly kind of misplaced to one of the events team on the build day. I was kind of going, God, they really just spring up out of nowhere, these shows. And he was like, no, they don't.
They don't spring up out of nowhere.
I've slept in 3 months. Oh, God, this is easy, isn't it? Look at these shows. You just pop up out of thin air, these shows.
This episode is brought to you by Hankook. The Hankook Ion tyre is built exclusively for electric vehicles, engineered to deliver what EV drivers need most: confident grip, quietness, energy efficiency, and long mileage. As the official tyre partner of Formula E, Hankook proves its EV technology is at the highest level of performance and brings that same innovation to every Ion tyre on the road. And now, back to the episode.
There's a microphone just over here. If you raise your hand, you're very welcome to ask us a question. The microphone will be brought to you.
I mean, one thing I wouldn't mind just getting a vague idea from you guys is, how do you feel about the venue? Because we actually love this venue. I think it's really beautiful. Oh, generally approving. Okay. And it's so easy to do test drives around here. I don't know if you've picked up on it. I occasionally get the smell of a small dairy room of cows, basically, which this had 5,000 cows in it not that long ago, which I find really comforting and reassuring. I think some people have moaned a bit. But that's been the only negative comment I've heard at all. It smells a bit cow-like. It's not all the time.
Cow-like at all.
Occasionally you get a bit of a whiff. Have you not had a whiff of cow?
I can't say that I have. Whiff of cow? Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes, people have had a whiff of cow.
I've got a shit nose. Is that what we're saying? Okay. Didn't realise. There's a question over here.
Yep. You've raised that in Australia we have some of the most affordable EVs. We've got a huge range of Chinese, but we're struggling to get above 10, 11% of the new market. What are your thoughts coming from Britain? What might be some of the reasons for that, particularly given we've got the sunshine and solar and everything?
I mean, I think it is a process, and it's a painful one. I mean, I think we have to acknowledge that there are fairly potent forces that would rather we didn't drive electric cars, which is kind of odd. I mean, and I'm not talking political necessarily, I'm talking economic forces. So the oil industry is obviously very big, very powerful, very global. And, it's not in their interest for us to stop buying their product, which is completely understandable. It's not even portraying them as evil conspiracists, though occasionally they are. But, there is some pressure. So the stories in the press about electric cars, I think that's the key thing, and that holds people back. They go, I wouldn't mind one of those. We can plug it in. We've got solar panels. And they'll go, oh, no, it'll burst into flames. It will blow up. You'll have to throw the battery after 3 years, of all those things. The alarms will just go off randomly. That happens. All electric cars do that.
About to catch fire over there.
Yeah, they're always doing. But then I think what happens, and I think we've seen this maybe 5 years ago in the UK, where it was very slow. It was growth, but it was slow. And then what I've kind of worked out is no amount of advertising or YouTube videos or anything will really push those numbers. What happens is there's a bloke over the road who's got a Renault Zoe. There's one up the street who's got a Tesla. And they're still driving them 4 years later, and you go, I'm just going to get a new car. Well, they seem to, and that the word of mouth, we've heard it so many times, and that is where you're at that position now in this country, where there's enough people with them that most people will know someone or see someone that they see regularly that drives one, and they're not in tears at the side of the road as it burns out or they've run out of battery. I don't know how people run out of battery. It is an unusual phrase, and it's that confidence that's got to grow slowly. And the other one is the charging infrastructure. And people think there is no charging infrastructure and there's nowhere I could charge it if you can't charge at home. And that takes a long time. And we still get that now in the UK where there's nowhere to charge them with this. I don't know what it is now. We're well over 18,000 public charge points with like 27 or 80. No, it's not. I'm way under. It's in the tens of thousands of rapid chargers in the UK. They're everywhere. Every motorway services doesn't have one or two; it has 26. And yet still people will say there's nowhere to charge them. And we have on-street charging in London is now over 150,000 on-street charge point sockets in lampposts, which I've used. It's very easy to use if you can park there. The real alternative for electric cars in London is, why are you driving a car? You're an idiot. It's the slowest way to get around, as you know, Jack. I mean,
absolutely.
I'm not saying you're an idiot.
I didn't actually take it that way until you clarified. I think that we have to remember that this technology is quite other, right? It's new, and hear all this talk about kilowatt hours and kilowatts and charging rates, and it sounds a bit daunting. And if you only consume sort of tabloid newspaper journalism, you may well genuinely believe that they are prone to catching fire and that you'll have to replace the battery in a few years' time for an immense cost, and there's no chargers everywhere. We're not blaming people for being misinformed. We simply have to give them better information, and that's why it's so important that all of you who drive EVs, who know what they're about, who know how beneficial this technology is, are ambassadors for it. We don't have to be moany and preachy. We just have to politely correct when we hear false information, and at any opportunity show them, because that's the best way, isn't it? Just shut up and drive that. Yeah, it's good, isn't it? Yeah, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's we like to think these shows are all about us on a stage, but it's actually just about people test driving electric cars, because there's nothing we can say that makes it more self-evident than just experiencing it for the first time.
Yeah.
Is there? So that's my spiel. Is just be a good ambassador for it, and bring your most cynical friend next year.
Oh, we got another question.
G'day. Just wondering if there's any government policy regulation sort of frameworks that you think Australia could adopt from somewhere else, or the UK, or vice versa?
Really good question. We don't have much more than you guys have here with your new efficiency standards, which is kind of the same thing as we have, where a certain percentage of vehicles have to be small and electric. unsurprisingly, the Norwegians are quite good at this. They've got a really fun policy where they basically have just slashed the purchase tax off electric vehicles, and then there's incrementally high purchase tax on combustion vehicles based on their CO2 emissions. So if you want to buy a Porsche Panamera V8 saloon instead of a Porsche Taycan electric saloon, the tax on that car is like 100%. You're paying double simply to sort of, you basically have to go out of your way to be like, look how important it is to pollute for me. And that's, you just have to make it make so much sense to people's wallets that they'll just buy it because it's the obvious financial choice, and then again they drive them. They're like, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
I'd like to see a little bit more stick along with the carrots, I guess is what I'm saying, Bobby.
Yes. Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. I mean, I think I've always been slightly uncomfortable and hesitant. It might be because I don't know what it is. It worries me that I'm a rampant capitalist, but I'm nervous about, government supporting and funding a technology. If the technology is good, we'll adopt it. And if it isn't any good, we won't. And I think that argument is a very good argument that the forces opposed to what we're trying to achieve can use very easily. Oh, so you have to have subsidies for these rubbish cars that don't work just to please a tree-hugging, holier-than-thou, virtue-signalling, whatever the hell all those boring old terms are. And so that makes me slightly nervous. And our sales figures were increasing slowly, albeit slowly, but they were going up before we had the most recent government grants announced. And the figures have gone way up. But actually, the figures have gone up more than is justified by the grants. And the grants are very modest, like mostly £1,500, so about $3,000 towards the price of a new car. The big change that we've had in the UK that you will get here eventually, and that really shifts the market, is second-hand. So when second-hand electric cars make a real impact, and what happened to us really last year and this year is a huge number of leased vehicles, so corporate leased electric cars came onto the market. They're 3 years old. They've been well looked after. They're well serviced. They have the percentage of second-hand vehicle sales went up. It was like 412%, which I don't understand percentages. That sounds like that's implausible, but a lot. And a lot of people have bought second-hand cars, are raving about them, are going, this is so good. And it's done 80,000 miles and it's absolutely fine. The battery's still at 97.9%. You get because you can get your battery health checked very, very. They are, but I mean the second-hand. There's now a sort of second-hand dealership networks that have grown up that understand electric cars, that drive electric cars. Whereas 10 years ago, anyone you spoke to said, "Oh, don't get a second-hand electric car; it'll fall to bits in 2 weeks, and you'll have to replace the battery." Now they're not saying that, and that's made a big difference.
100%. You can now sort of plug a dongle into a used EV and get an exact readout of the remaining percentage of the battery capacity. There's an organisation here this weekend who do precisely that.
Yeah.
But that's such a good point, Bobby. The used market has blossomed in the UK, and who buys a new car if they can avoid it, right? Most people buy second-hand. It's just the obvious way to buy cars. It's so much more affordable. But it takes time. They need to be new first in order to become used, and that will come over the next couple of years. That's an interesting point you made about not incentivizing things becoming a sort of useful stick for your opponents to beat you with. I suppose the argument is once upon a time they were just more expensive.
They were more, and it had to happen early on.
They're not really anymore. An equivalent petrol and EV are so similar on price now because battery prices have tumbled. So maybe the need for massive incentives is less these days.
I mean, I've just driven it, and it's not I'm not even going to mention the make or the car because it hasn't been the most popular vehicle in the UK in its history. But there's a recently launched vehicle where the full petrol one costs this, the hybrid version costs that. The cheap version is the electric one. It is cheaper, not the same cost, it's cheaper, about £1,000 cheaper than the petrol or the hybrid version, which I think that's the first one I've come across like that, and that is a European-built vehicle. And I think it's good that I didn't mention what it is.
Vauxhall Frontera.
All right, thank you.
Right, yeah. That's a good car. That's all right.
No, it was all right. I'll tell you what was interesting about it. It had a digital detox. You get in it, it's got a speedometer, it's got a radio, it's got air conditioning, it's got heating, and a radio, and you can plug your phone in. So it's got nothing. And I went, that is so delightful. And you start driving, and I know how fast I'm going. That's all I need.
I think this is a movement. I actually think there's a
It's got
sort
no
of
apps, no fancy
physical
flippy bits.
button and switch renaissance taking place. We reached critical mass in terms of how flipping distracting car interiors were, how massive and overwhelming the screens were, and how many features were buried inside of them. And we're seeing it start to go the other way now because no one preferred that. Haptic buttons are much cheaper to manufacture than physical buttons on a steering wheel because it's one piece instead of lots. No one prefers them either. So we've seen VW kind of put their hands up and go, we're sorry, we messed up with those interiors. We're going back to the old way. Tesla brought back the stalk. Thank goodness for that.
Yeah.
You know, fun to try stuff, but it didn't work.
Yeah.
So yeah, but buttons are back. I'm excited about that.
Don't know why bring back the stalk makes me... I think I want a T-shirt with that on. Sophie, have we got someone? All right.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but back in the UK, your daily driver is a MG4 and a Polestar 2. If you came and moved to Australia, what would your daily driver be, do you think?
Polestar 4. That's for shopping, and I don't know.
I have a V8 Holden Monaro. Is that fine to say? It's not, is it? That would be my weekend car. I had the Zeekr 7X for a couple of days before the show. It was absolutely delightful, that thing. This gentleman's making motorcycle gestures at me. Also, yes, 100%.
Yeah.
I was very impressed by the Zeekr. I didn't really know what that brand was all about because we don't get them in the UK, and it's, of course, a sister brand of Polestar.
Yes.
So it's a cop-out answer from me. I'm going from a Polestar to a kind of nearly Polestar. But I'm a big fan.
The Xpeng P... God, you're so much better at them. The one I drove here a couple of years ago.
G6?
G6.
Maybe? Yeah.
It could be, yeah. Oh, I mean, that was such a comfy car. That's when you're driving. I was driving with my wife and son, and we're taking turns driving. And I want to have a drive, you know, all that stuff. I didn't want to have a drive. I sat in the back. It was so comfy. I just slept the whole journey. We drove from Brisbane to Sydney in it, and it was so easy. It was such a great car. Something like that. I mean, I would definitely consider a much bigger car here. It's weird, isn't it? Than I would in the UK. I always want a smaller car there, but I would love just want something that chews up the road in an environmentally sustainable way.
I have a question over this side.
Thanks for coming to Melbourne, guys. I've actually travelled up to Sydney in the past to see the show, and I appreciate you being here. But the question I have is a sort of economical question, and I'd be interested to hear your opinion.
Just a tiny bit closer to your mouth, please.
Different countries. So the state of Victoria, where we are now, attempted to put a kilometre charge on cars, and the federal government made them stop and cease and desist on that. And so there's an obvious point in the politics where the pollies are going to turn around and say, we're not going to finance these cars by giving discounts or, you know, incentives to buy them, but they're also realizing that they're not getting any fuel tax.
Yeah.
So what view do you have on that? And has this something to do with the 10% plateau, or how do you feel this uncertainty is affecting the marketplace?
It could be, couldn't it? I mean, it's certainly something that's come up very recently in the UK, and I haven't, because I've not been there, I've not focused it, but there's been talk of a mileage charge in the UK. Now, the only thing that I noticed, which is exactly the same argument that happened here, was at a Q&A with the transport minister in the UK. Someone asked, I drive to France every year, you know, so I do 3,500 kilometres in France. Do I have to pay you for those kilometres? And they said yes. And then you felt a chill sink on the room, and you went, oh, really? Is that how it went? And, you know, because to be honest, France is not very far away from us, and a lot of people go there. So it's a really complicated, because I've always, you know, we've got to pay to use the roads. That's totally fair. I've never had any problem with that. But taxing electricity is really difficult. And all the people I've spoken to, both in the electricity industry and the government, have just said there's no way we can do it. You know, so it has to be a different charge, and it might be that you reduce fuel tax but increase mileage tax. You know, what's going to make it bad and awkward is if some cars pay a mileage charge and some don't. And I just don't think there's always going to be a lot of friction. So if your gasoline is cheaper, but you're paying a mileage charge that's the same as an electric vehicle, it's still. I don't know how that. I mean, that's a solution that all cars pay a mileage charge rather than a fuel duty. I suppose that because one of the things I understood very early on. And I say I understood when it was explained to me by clever people in America. It's a disruptive technology. So in a sense, it's like cell phones, that we all had landlines and that there were companies that thrived because everyone had to have a landline. And cell phones came in and it mashed that old industry to bits, and it doesn't exist anymore. And it either adopted or died, and mostly they died. Well, in a way, electric cars are the same. They throw all the old ways of doing things really easy. You have fuel duty. You know how much you pay on each litre you buy, and that's where the government gets their money to theoretically maintain the roads. They're not very good at it in England, but and when you mess that all up and you suddenly bring in a new technology that doesn't need fuel and doesn't use and can use electricity from any source, anywhere at any time, it messes the whole thing up. And so I don't think we've got an answer for it yet. I think it's going to be a long-running debate. I think there'll be massive setbacks in certain countries. There'll be, support and for electric vehicles in other countries. I don't think we know. I haven't seen a system that I think, that works. I mean, Norway, you can go. It's amazing what they've done in Norway. Norway sells more gas and oil than pretty much any other country in the world. And they're sitting there in their very, very nice houses with their lovely electric cars, with a massive sovereign wealth fund. I mean, they've done it right. Every single Norwegian is worth about $700,000, just from sitting in their beautiful handmade Norwegian chair with their hand-knitted Norwegian jumper. It makes me sick. I'm always very rude to Norwegians that's why I don't get invited anymore, I think. So Jack often is presenting at the amazing Norwegian EV event, and I've always said, I hate all of you. We give you all our money for our gas and oil and you just spend it on electric cars, you're scum. And they laugh politely, but then I don't go back. Sorry.
We're just about out of time, but we could take one more speedy question to finish the session. Hello. Just one moment, sir. Microphone incoming. I think I'm on the stage next, Robert, so we can just go a bit
God,
longer.
sorry, Jack.
No. As in there's no rush.
It's just the chair's very comfy.
It's just a suggestion. It's not a way to, what's your response to it? What if you based the tax on the weight of a car or a vehicle?
Sounds like a good idea to me.
Rather than the fuel that drives it.
I think they do something like that in France with their kind of inner city congestion charge is weight-based. It's an interesting idea.
Certainly Paris, Mayor Hidalgo in Paris has brought in numerous bits of legislation that are, have been described as anti-car. I don't know that they are, but they're definitely anti-SUV in a big way. And then the French are much more used to tiny little de chevaux and Renaults and Citroën. Right. So it's a very different thing. But they are taxing heavy, larger vehicles in Paris. This is specifically in the city, so not the whole country. But I think that is possibly a thing, and that could be a challenge for the electric vehicle industry. But I think the one thing we know is that batteries are getting smaller, cheaper, and lighter. And when I heard that 10 years ago, I went, not really. Now, batteries are getting smaller, cheaper, and lighter. So that they're more energy dense. They're less big lumps. And they will continue to do that. We saw stuff. I was in China earlier this year. We saw stuff being produced by CATL and other battery companies. Sorry.
Getting choked up thinking about
those
batteries. No,
not getting choked up. Just wanted to swallow at the wrong time. But, and the technology that's coming in the next 5 years is bewildering. Its cost is just so low. It's the size, the compactness of it is extraordinary. And the longevity is extraordinary. Oh, lovely. CATL are talking about 90-year batteries. They were talking to us, this is a 90-year battery. And you go, just makes no sense at all. What use is that to me? But, interesting.
To your weight question, I think there's a lot I like about that, actually. That we are massive advocates for smaller, lighter cars. Electric cars, in particular, just get better and better when they are smaller and lighter because they get more efficient. Means they don't need as much battery. It means they're better for the planet, more fun to drive, etc., etc. I mean, it's not without its issues. People who wheelchair users might require larger vehicles in order to get their stuff in. People who have lots of children might need larger vehicles to ferry them around. Would you penalise people for having too many children? Lots of children, not too many children. Sorry, I misspoke. Slip of the tongue. But it's an interesting model, and I would love to see us doing something about the endless sort of obesity crisis that we have with our cars now, because it's just crazy. We did a panel about micromobility yesterday, and we were talking about, it's kind of weird to talk about scooters and mopeds and motorcycles as micro vehicles, because the implication is that a normal-sized vehicle for one person is a 2.5-ton box. That's kind of weird, isn't it? Especially around town.
Yeah.
So I think that it's a separate issue for a conversation for another day, but I would love to see something that pushes us towards more suitably sized vehicles for cities, because it's just absurd.
And on that, we're definitely over time. Oh my goodness, yes, it's now actually flashing.
Indeed.
So that shows that we've gone over, and you've got to do a panel. I'm so sorry, Jack. That's very
Lovely to catch up with you.
No, it's very nice. No, it's lovely. We always love it. We love a bit of a chin wag, don't we, Jack? Lovely young Jack. He's marvellous. Give him a big round of applause. Isn't he marvellous?
Thank you all for joining us. Have a lovely afternoon.
Thank you.